order. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, take roll, hold closed session. Is everybody up and ready to go?
Yes.
All right. I hereby call the regular Board of Education meeting this September 10th, 2024 to order at 6:45 p.m. Please silence or turn off all electronic devices. Could you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Okay, Vice President Friedland, could you please take a roll in lieu of Mrs. Johnson, who is not here tonight?
Yes. Bianchini is absent currently. Camardo?
Here.
Friedland here. Grimpy?
Here.
Johnson is also absent. Pfister?
Here.
And Ronstadt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, can I entertain a motion and a second to go into closed session for the purposes of personnel at 6:46 p.m.?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Pfisterer, second by Ronstadt.
I'm sorry, I'm rusty, guys.
It's okay.
Oh, Pfister, Ronstadt.
Yep.
Camardo?
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Pfister?
Yes.
Ronstadt?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That's why I said, yeah. Oh, I forgot. That's this weekend too. All budgets all the time.
Bob, you lost your partner in crime here.
I did.
Oh,
It's
my
just a.
goodness.
No, that's true. They're growing. That's what's sad. That's what I want. Everybody ready? Yep, absolutely.
I know, I'm like, oh, I'm in your. No.
All right, let me entertain a motion and a second to resume in open session at 7 o'clock.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Friedland.
Camardo?
Yes.
Ronstadt?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Pfister?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are back in open session at 7 o'clock. All right, next up is the public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 budget. Can I entertain a motion and a second to open the public hearing at 7 o'clock for the River Trail School District fiscal year 2025 budget?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Camardo, second by Pfister.
Camardo?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, were you asking or taking roll?
Sorry, I was taking roll.
Sorry.
My bad.
That's
I
on
got
me.
ahead of myself.
It's okay.
Would you like me to take roll, Mr. President?
Please do. It's all good.
Wonderful. Camardo?
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Pfister?
Yes.
Ronstadt?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we are in our public hearing for the budget. Ryan, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So there are no changes from the tentative budget presented in July. We have just a quick breakdown of where we were in the 2024 budget, where we ended up in 2024 actuals, and then the 2025 budget. You can see in the expenditures we have a significant increase in overall budget expenditures, mostly due to Fund 60 and the capital projects between Euclid and Indian Grove. We finished the year last year with a large surplus in Fund 60 due to just basically the billing cycle. So we saw a lot of the bills for the Euclid Infrastructure Phase 2 project come in after July 1, and that's why there was much less spending in last year's budget compared to the expected budget. Other major differences in Fund 10, there was about a $500,000 savings in benefits and salaries, and a $500,000 between purchase services, supplies, and other expenditures in Fund 10. Overall, we have a 1.7% operating fund increase in our expenditures and a 36.4% total increase in the expenditures compared to last year. And again, a majority of that is solely based on the construction and capital projects. When it comes to revenues, we have a 4.1% operating increase compared to last year. We did experience higher actuals than we did budget, and we're looking at consistent numbers this year to what were actually received last year in revenues. Overall, a 5.2% increase from last year's budget to this year, and overall the budget has a $22.6 million deficit, again, due to the two major capital improvement projects at Indian Grove and Euclid. Any questions?
Could you run down just the fund? What are all those funds? Fund 10, 20, I know.
Absolutely. Fund 10 is your education fund, so that's where a majority of the salaries and benefits come out of. That's all of your teachers, most of your educational support staff, where you buy your curriculum, supplies for the classroom. Fund 20 is your operations and maintenance fund. That's basically where you spend most of your money for your buildings, just general upkeep, energy costs, refuge costs, things of that nature. Fund 30 is your bond and interest fund, so that's where all the borrowed money, the bond interest comes in and where we pay those bond payments out of. Fund 40 is transportation, so all of the busing, transportation fees come out of that fund. Fund 50 is a combination between IMRF, which is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, and Social Security, so all of our classified staff retirement pension fund come out of that fund, as well as all the Social Security and Medicare payments. Fund 60 is your capital projects fund, so that's where any major capital projects over $50,000, that money is expended from that account. And then Fund 70 is a working cash fund, which is essentially, I just like to call it like a savings account, essentially. So no expenditures come out of Fund 70 because it's there for working cash. You can mostly transfers in and out, but no expenditures. And then the revenue there is typically just interest revenue coming out of that account.
Thank you.
This is also a public hearing, so anyone from the audience is welcome to ask any questions that they have on the budget. Hearing none. With no further questions from the board and the public, I hereby entertain.
Is now a time when I
Yeah.
say anything that I think?
Please
or
do.
Is that the next part after we close? Okay, then I'm going to take advantage now. So overall, for the fiscal year 25 budget, no objections or real questions to the education or the operating funds, I should say. What I have for the past 2 years been concerned with is the capital projects and debt service budgets. It's the amount that we are leveraging in debt and the future plan to pay down that debt over the next 10 years. And I feel that the budget of $24.8 million for the capital projects is in excess of what, in my opinion, what we could responsibly, comfortably, pay down with the plan that had been presented over the 5-year forecast plan over the past couple years. Understanding that in order to service all of the renovation projects that we've done, which have been great so far, we had to leverage every single aspect of borrowing that we had available to us to the maximum extent. So if anything came up in the future, another dot-com bubbles and housing bubbles and inflation peaks and COVIDs, there's not a lot of wiggle room for us to still meet our financial obligations, given that we can't borrow from any other source of funding. And that the plan for paying down the debt that we're incurring is predicated on very idealistic budget assumptions, with very low minimal increases in the CPI, with our teacher contracts, with the increase of expenditures. And so if any of those aren't in complete alignment with all of our other parties, we find ourselves in a little bit of a bind. So when we were presented with the overall capital projects plan 23 months ago, it was a $35 million plan, and today we're at $44.5 million. So I find that $9 million increase to be overly aggressive for what we had available to us, and that with a $9 million increase in expenditures, the new plan had $11 million in additional revenue, 4 of which I was able to easily identify in DSEB bonds. So there's $7 million in additional revenue to cover the extra $9 million, but you've only had enough time to figure out where 3 out of that $7 million in additional revenue has come from. And so with the plan of having this much debt out there and still not I'm foggy at least on understanding where this extra revenue is coming from, and the very tight idealistic assumptions in our operating revenue plan for that annual surplus to pay down the debt just makes me uneasy. So I am not going to approve this because of the capital projects aspect of it and not on the operating funds. Said my piece.
Anybody else? Okay, with no further questions from the board and public, I hereby entertain a motion and second to adjourn the public hearing at 7:09 PM. for the River Trails School District fiscal year 2025 budget.
Moved.
Moved by Pfister.
Second.
Second by Ronstadt.
You're rusty.
I am very rusty at this. I apologize to everyone. I am so sorry, guys. Thank you for your patience. Who made the movement? Who was it? I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Becky and me.
Correct.
Thank you. Oh, Grimpy,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Pfister,
Yes.
Camardo,
This is just to close the hearing?
yes.
Yes.
We are out at 7:10.
And let the record show that Kim Bianchini entered the meeting at 7:04 PM, so she could be a voting member going forward. All right, and next up is the consent agenda. Looking over the consent agenda, are there any items that a member would like to remove and further discuss, or is there any question of clarification? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as presented, which includes the following: the Board of Education meeting minutes from August 13th, 2024, the personnel report, actual payrolls, bills, and checks, the travel report, declassification of closed session minutes, destruction of verbatim tapes, EIS administrator and teacher salary benefits report, and IMRF staff compensation, and the press packets 115 and 116.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Ronstadt.
Pfister,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Ronstadt,
Yes.
Bianchini, yes. Camardo,
Yes.
Grimpy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is RTA comments. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you too, Mr. President. Good evening. On behalf of the RTA Executive Committee and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the administration for the wonderful ongoing working relationship that we have. Euclid looks fantastic. The teachers over there are absolutely thrilled. Hopefully going forward, you'll approve the renovations at Indian Grove as well. Because I know once the Indian Grove parents get a whiff of how, and I do mean a whiff because it smells amazing over it in Euclid. It's so fresh, that air. They're going to want it too. And I met with the executive board tonight, and they were very happy and willing and ready to have dinner with the board as well again this year. I know next year we probably will not be able to due to negotiations. I think that would be a little uncouth. I know, Mr. Grimpy, you agreed. Yeah. But other than that, they're looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up are visitor comments. We invite those to approach the board with any questions and or comments. At this time, we recognize any members of the audience who approach the board with their comment or question by completing a visitor comment card. Please do note that the board and administration typically does not respond, and if you wish for a response, please provide your name and number or email for a member of the board or administration to get back to you. Speakers are encouraged to limit their time for others to participate, a 3-minute time limit per speaker with an overall 60-minute maximum for visitors' comments per our current policy. Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to board communications. This is an open agenda for all board members. Would anyone like to comment or add anything?
I'll start.
Please do.
I was able to attend several events. It's busy this time of year. Indian Grove had a great back to school bash. It was very well attended. PTC did a great job with ice cream and pops and just kids on bikes, and there were a huge turnout. It was a great night, so thank you to them. I attended 2 open houses. So River Trails Middle School was last week. A lot of great turnout for parents as they followed their children's schedules. So that was, I think, an interesting experience for them. A lot of enthusiasm about the before and after pictures of Euclid. We had a table there. A lot of them remembered going to Euclid, and so seeing it in their new iteration, they were so excited for it. And then we had a good ribbon cutting and open house at Euclid last week, and It was nice to see people taking their tours, enjoying the building, bringing the space to life. And I think it can never be said enough, like, thank you to the staff, the teachers, the administration. Like, you have to take time to congratulate yourselves on working for a whole year and 2 years to get that done. It just turned out beautifully. So great job.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I too attended the open house at the middle school, and school looks great. I love seeing the school before the kids tear into it. It's all nice and clean, and just really looked pretty good. And then I did attend the ribbon cutting for both Euclid School, but also the soccer pitch. And it was the first time I stepped out on the soccer pitch, and before the ribbon cutting, there were just legit a handful of kids just playing on the field. And then we stepped out on the field to do our pictures, and, we got our pictures, but the kids just went right back to it. And I bet right now on a nice day like this, I bet you at 7:50 at night, I bet there's a couple of kids over there right now playing. And, I got to see the school, and the school's amazing and awesome, but I did want to just call out what an amazing thing the soccer pitch is. And, again, thank everybody's effort, including the gentleman whose name is escaping me, who started this whole process, Danny Martinez. Yep, I got a few minutes to talk with him, and he's an amazing young man. Just wow, what a person to have in our community to put the effort into making that happen, to have the vision, to go after the funding, to stick with it, and it's just really cool to see that come to fruition. So.
Anybody else?
The only thing I have, and this is just by word of mouth, but the first grade welcome party at Euclid. We have some parents that are on the block that sometimes that transition from Prairie Trails to a new school could be a little bit much with big feelings. But they said that it was amazing that the teachers being there and then getting to meet the new families and anybody who's moved into the district. It was really, really nice for the new students and the first graders. So. And that was told to me by several parents. So,
And I attended many of the events that have already been mentioned, and I reiterate the comments that have already been mentioned, so no reason to copy them. But does anybody else have anything they'd like to add before we move on? Okay, then let's move on. Next up is the district recognition. This is Jody and Ryan.
Too. Okay. Getting organized here. So tonight I'm going to take a moment to recognize our Human Resources Department, our Payroll Department, and our Transportation Department. So I know that we have recognized the business office in the past, but tonight I'm just recognizing a few members because I want to just be a little bit more specific in terms of why I've put them on the docket and just some of the things that they have done over the last few months to get the school year off to a great start. So, Gosha, I'm going to have you come up here while I talk about you. So come on up. And then you can hang out for a few minutes. So this is Gosha Sopa. So she's been in our district for almost 2 years now. I think we posted her job September of 22, so just shy of 2 years. So she was originally hired to help support the business office in that temporary capacity. And so as the reporting requirements increased, we found that the majority of her work had centered around supporting human resources. So she really kind of morphed into that human resources assistant. So during her time, we've moved from paper to digital employee records. So Gosha double checks all of the data. She double checks the certifications. She double checks the transcripts and other paperwork that we collect on employees. She scans it, gets it in the system, it's housed, it's clean, and it's there if we need it. Last July, the state implemented a new process called the EHR, the Employee History Review, which requires us to send and receive forms asking about any sexual misconduct by potential employees to all current and past employers that the candidate has had direct contact with students. So you can imagine, teachers didn't all come from the business world. They're all coming from other schools. They've all pretty much had contact with kids. So that process just added a whole nother layer to Gosha's plate. And so Gosha has been tapped to take that hefty task on and keep that organized. Last fall, then, the state changed the 4-year tenure law, requiring the need for us to historically track the past evaluation ratings so that we could give different tenure to different folks. So Gosha was tapped to take that on. And now, this year, she's inherited the task of tracking mandated trainings for the staff, who didn't complete them, what they didn't complete, and now with the new fob system at Euclid, because now all the doors have a fob, that's increased the fob load, the little, zapper that lets you in the doors. Gosha inherited that when the business office assistant retired. And so now that job in and of itself has doubled, tripled. It's required more learning. It's required more time and more attention. So, Gosha has been instrumental in our district goal of system building. When I needed a list of staff members by building to upload for those mandated trainings, Gosha had it done in not even 5 minutes. When Christy needs a list of EL certified staff, she can email Gosha and she can send her the list. That did not exist 3 years ago. Christy would have had to have asked the principals, looked up every staff member one by one. We did not have a clean list of employee by school. And when I say clean list, she already had the new hires in there for me to upload. So in terms, again, of system building, Gosha has been instrumental in that. And so I thank you, Gosha, for your willingness to learn, to grow, and to always take on projects that we need. So we have a certificate. Mr. Grimpy has a certificate for you. You want to add anything? I've got a lot. Okay, Lisa, you're next. Come on down. So Lisa Sulik is celebrating her 1-year anniversary this week, right? Yeah? All right. So Lisa started at an interesting time when everyone was mostly hired, and onboarding had already begun for the year. So I want to concentrate. So Lisa survived the beginning months of work, but I really want to focus in on the busy time, the super busy time, because all our time is busy. So things got a little bit crazy after the March board meeting. That's usually when we start posting all of our open positions. So March into early April, we posted and shifted over 20 staff members. And so, I was like, Lisa, I want these posted before spring break so that we have the week for applicants to come in. So it was a lot in a very short period of time. We had year-long leave of absences, we had resignations, we had retirements, and then we had internal shifts that filled some of those positions. So we want to move quickly on open positions so that we hire the best people. And so Lisa went from 0 to 60 overnight. So the remainder of the year continued in that fashion while she needed to work to develop a system to keep track of who was moving, who was shifting, where they were going, what building. And so then she also had to work with the tech department to onboard everyone. And so you would think that we would have a clear system in place to track and document who was resigning and moving and shifting, and we just did it. So Lisa put a process in place. It was easily shared with members of cabinet so that they could use that system to then build onto, and it's been great. And so the system worked, hopefully, has worked for you. And then, she had to build calendars for our 10-month positions, our 12-month, our secretaries. And then finally, over the summer, I think the other big task was learn how to roll over our system into the new year. So I have no idea how it's done, but basically she is responsible. This rollover updates everyone's work calendar. It updates their sick days, their personal days, their updated salaries, their updated benefits. And oh yeah, there was open enrollment too to pick your new plan for the year. So things were just, basically crazy from March until almost like maybe this week. But Lisa has been great. Like, obviously, learning, getting everyone hired. She knows that principals are stressed to fill spots, and she just responds accordingly. So she's survived an entire year with us. I'm happy to report, but it's been great working with Lisa. She's been wonderful. So thank you for everything. All right. Jay, come on up. So this is Jay Lurch, and you celebrated your 1-year anniversary like end of July, early August? Do you remember with the date? Early August, okay. So Jay, again, 1 year under his belt. Jay quickly learned our systems, which I would say are not easy systems to learn, right? And he does it with that smile on his face. And similar to Lisa, he's had most of the year under his belt, but there were some big pieces of the job that came like once per year. So specifically the end of the year payroll. On June 30th, there are lots of different payrolls to process. Some retirees get a stipend. Coaches and club sponsors get stipends. There's different payouts for different people, different summer payrolls if you're on 24-month payout. And so, this was all very new, and it's payroll. So, nobody wants to mess that up. Jay does a great job of asking questions. He uses the resources that he has available to him to learn these new things that will come up once a year, and then he won't see them again until June. And so, unfortunately, Jay also inherited some other unknown payroll structures that weren't really communicated with him when he started. And so that caused some frustration with employees. Obviously, as you can imagine, it's payroll, but Jay worked closely with Ryan to really right the wrong as best they could and as quickly as they could for the employees. And I think that's just, again, a result of some lags in our system in the payroll area that we're working to clean up. And I think, for sure with Ryan's background and Jay's determination and work ethic, we can certainly get there. So I'm really excited about that. And I think more on a personal note, Jay brings about a really positive atmosphere in the business office. He's easygoing. He understands schools. He's a school board president. And he's been like the closer to our district office meetings. Every meeting, Jay closes our meetings with a joke, and it's a dad joke, but it's great. It's just really nice. Again, creates that very positive atmosphere. So he brings about a nice humor, easygoing attitude to the office. So thank you for everything, Jay. Okay, and then finally, the gal cringing in the back right now has been our pseudo transportation coordinator for the last several months. She's not happy that I'm recognizing her tonight, but you want to come up, Patty? Come on. She's gonna kill me. Yeah. So Patty just does whatever needs to be done. And so she doesn't like that I have to bring her up here to say thank you. But honestly, nobody wants to do transportation. And Patty is like, whatever needs to be done, I will do it. So there's no way that I could let another month go by and not thank Patty. So, this has been a new title to her already busy role these past few months. It's a beast of a job, and to no surprise, Patty's been all over it. She went into the task with a timeline. She had benchmarks along the way. She's tracked the data. She reached out to families. She knew how many families hadn't paid for transportation and how many weren't going to get routed. Like, she was all over it. She knew what we needed to have done by August 1st just to make sure all of our kids got routed, they all got bus passes, and make sure things were ready for the start of school. And it's not been easy. Like, there's been some data glitches in the system at one point, which required like doing it all over again. And so more attention, more cleanup, and again, just more to her already full plate. So that was all before school started. Then came the phone calls, the late buses, the broken mirror on the bus, the broken down bus, the alarm going off on the bus, a lost student, another lost student, a bus route running its route in reverse. Like, these are all things that Patty's taking calls for the first 2-3 days of school. And, you know, she addresses each one pleasantly and efficiently, and, you know, has a very natural way of like giving it back to the transportation company when they need it, but politely. She has a very good working banter with them, and in getting answers, I think. So she's just been great. So I will stop. Thank you for everything, because honestly, like, I mean, we couldn't run school without transportation. So so thank you, Patty. I'm done now. Yes, thank you for everybody. Like, you guys are all amazing.
All right, next up is new business and business services, the student enrollment update. Ryan, that is you.
So as you can see, based on the 6-day enrollment projections and the actuals that came in for the FY25 registered, we are almost 50 students less than we were last year. About half of those are from Prairie Trails and the kindergarten numbers. The other majority are from Indian Grove, spread out throughout the grade levels there, but Euclid is fairly close to where they were last year. The middle school is also fairly close. Out of district students are slightly higher, but nothing really offset or anything like that. So that's where we are now. Enrollment as of last week.
All right. Thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions? This is just an information item. There's no action on it, but just. All right, hearing none, let's go to the approval of the fiscal year 2025 budget. This is an action item. Let me entertain a motion in a second to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget as presented.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Pfisterer, second by Bianchini.
May I take roll?
Please do.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
Just to go into it or to approve it?
We were talking about it first.
We already did.
well,
This is the budget. I mean, we went into open session. We went into. I mean, are there any more?
I mean, I did want to make a comment. I thought this was when we were doing it at the
No,
action
that's
item.
when Lewis asked if he can make a comment. We said, yeah. I mean, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, no, I just want to say, I echo much of what Louis said. I do understand, though, that, but I also understand that the change, I've had some one-on-ones with Jody and Ryan to discuss some of the budgeting and some of the, you know, the just tightening up some of the information and whatnot, and I'm confident that we will answer some of these questions and get to a good place. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, could you please call roll?
Oh, go ahead.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
No.
Friedland, yes. Pfister,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
and Ronstadt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is the employee stipend for wellness incentive. This is an information/action item. Who's presenting this one? Ryan, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So it's recommended that a stipend of $150 for obtaining 300 points in the Wellness Committee's Let's Get Well Together rewards incentive, and a $75 stipend if they receive 200 points out of a total 375 possible points for the Wellness Challenge. This mirrors last year's Wellness Challenge with the exception of changes in the actual activities. This year, there's 3 fun activity challenges that they have. The first is Walk It Out in the fall, Slay the Season in the winter, and then Steptacular in the spring. I'm happy to say last year there were 178 employees that received 1 or 2 of the stipends. And as of right now, we have 156 people signed up for the wellness screenings, which are a large portion of those points. So we're well on track to reach the same amount this year as we did last year.
Are there any comments or questions? Is that all you have?
Yes.
Are there any comments or questions?
I know Donna's not here to speak to oh, I'm sorry, Robert. You took it over. You did, didn't you? Sorry about that, the wellness committee piece. But I know that was appreciated last year, and I think people like to have these incentives in order to take care of some preventive things that they were going to do anyways. So I know that's just a nice added benefit, and it seems that people like to participate every year. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll? Or can I have I'm sorry. Let me entertain a motion and a second for the approval of the employee stipend of $150 for obtaining 300 points and $75 for 200 points out of a 375 possible points on our 2024-2025 Wellness Challenge.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Friedland. I didn't catch who that was, sorry. Second by Bianchini. Last chance. Comments or questions? Okay, could you please call roll?
Camardo,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Ronstadt,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Pfister.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is our committee updates. First up is NSSEO. Mr. Ronstadt, you are our representative.
Okay, well, we have been quite busy. So we officially kicked off the strategic plan process. We had the core committee meeting and kind of got a full layout of how it's going to work. I do have one of the things we're really honing in on is communication and coordination with member districts. So we are trying to get everybody on the same page and getting cooperation or getting participation levels to their full extent. So I have so we don't screw it up. We have a written statement that I want to read to everybody.
Please do.
As you know, NSSEO is embarking upon a strategic plan to guide the organization and prioritize the work of the next 5 years. As member districts, our input is being sought in several ways by the consulting firm Hazard Young and Atera, HYA. All member district superintendents are participating in a superintendent focus group. Our assistant superintendents, directors of special education, are participating in a focus group. And NSSEO governing board members will each have a 1-hour one-on-one interview with the consulting firm. HYA will be providing NSSEO with an environmental scan in November, which is a summary of all the information gathered from parent and staff surveys, focus groups, data sources, including financial, facilities, and student data. This is essentially a summary of the current state of affairs for the organization. I will be bringing a brief summary of the environment scan to our November board meeting. Each NSSEO member district is asked to invite 3 staff members or board members to attend the 2 full-day meetings in which NSSEO strategic plan will be written. The dates for those 2 days are December 3rd and December 10th from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. It will be at the discretion of each member district to determine the appropriate attendees for this important meeting. And Dr. Schnorr, Superintendent of NSSEO, will be speaking with the member district superintendents with additional details to help determine the participants representing each district. My intent in sharing this information this evening was to make you aware of the process and that we need to save the dates so our district is represented in these important meetings in December. Any questions, comments, concerns?
So they meet in December, and then by May, they'll have a strategic.
No, so we are planning, right now, there's focus groups going on. We are doing the environmental scan, which is like a current state. So we're going to have all that information together, and I'm going to give a brief summary or presentation on that to just describe what's going on, what do we got, all the kind of just the factual, state of affairs, if you will. And then December 3rd and 10th, we will be sitting down to write the strategic plan. So that is it will be done by, yes, January. January is a good target, but the idea is to have it done and approved January, February-ish, so that we can start aligning it with the budget and with the plans for next year. So that meeting, or those 2 full days, are for, very much a working meeting. Yes. So, obviously that can be, whoever, it's kind of a discussion amongst ourselves and also the administration of who to best contribute to that. We do spend, about $1.2 million a year with NSSEO. We do have a, stake in the organization. They are our students. And NSSEO is, there's some need over there. We got some facilities needs that need to be addressed. And we also really have to, as a district, figure out or have a voice in what we need from a special ed standpoint. NSSEO doesn't just provide outsourcing of those students. It also provides quite a bit of professional learning services and of, is a source of knowledge and training. It has a deep expertise and bench regarding a very policy-heavy handling of special education. So when those, a lot of that knowledge comes from and gets dispersed throughout all the member districts from NSSEO. So, yeah.
Okay. Any questions by anybody?
I'm sorry, I know you mentioned this, I think I just missed it.
Yeah.
So for all the stakeholders that and they're sending out surveys for that information, that's only going to go to the parents, or that's going to go to any individuals? Like, is it going to be like a board update where it would go out to individuals like, just like me?
I received one today, so.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, so it's parent and staff surveys, focus groups, and then data sources. So yes, we are doing parents and staff. It's going beyond that, doing one with community members, with the superintendents, with the special education superintendents. I don't know why you would have gotten one.
I can add it to my
Is
Friday
you a board
update.
member?
Okay, yeah, because I was just,
Okay.
okay, yeah, I mean, Jody just said that she could add it to her Friday update, because I was just curious, since we're all technically,
I got one too.
oh, to your district account?
Yeah.
I apologize. I was
Okay.
saying like at the.
Okay,
just
so that's
at,
probably
like,
because you're a
parents.
board member.
Okay.
Okay, so again, we're trying to get, I would assume that's because you're a board member, not because you're a District 26 parent.
It looks like it went out to all parents, guardians. Additionally, parents, faculty, staff, and community members are invited to take this survey until September 20th. So I assume I'm part of the community.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Is that it for your update?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, again, if there's anybody that is, chomping at the bit to participate, please let myself or Jody know. And otherwise, for internal purposes, I probably leave the discretion to Jody as to who best to represent River Trails in helping to develop that plan.
Kim, I know you're the alternate for NSSCO as our rep. Is that something you could attend? I mean, I know this, I don't mean to catch you off guard, but I, as our alternate, I'd like you to consider attending. Great.
Well, I think we're going to talk in November. And I think depending on the structure of what's happening at those meetings on the 3rd and the 10th, that will give us information on what those focus areas are. So I would like to know that before we figure out who goes, because I only have 3 reps. And if one whole day is on finance, like I would want Ryan there. You know what I mean? So I think depending on what the focus pieces are, that will help us figure out who the reps are.
Yeah.
And we just talked about this today.
Yeah,
with
I
Meg.
agree. And I think that, this is for members who are, or for individuals who are pretty deep into the special ed component here or have a fair amount of interface with NSSEO. I don't think this is where these aren't the meetings where you step in to go, tell me more about NSSEO. Sure. These are people who know what's going on, who have a pretty clear understanding of some of the challenges and some of the needs and are ready to, come up with some ideas and help build some consensus.
All right, next up is the Operations Committee. And you are...
Man, I got a lot going here.
Yeah, you sure do.
Okay, so we had a very constructive meeting, and first of all, I want to thank the administration for helping me and helping to facilitate getting the operations committee into better sorts. We reviewed the infrastructure bids for the improvements to IG. So this is the way I understand it, the 3rd set of budgetary numbers, but also the really fine-tuning of the actual project work. So I'm going to take this more from an operations standpoint, although I will say that I was happy to see that the dollars have come in under the previous numbers, so we're looking good there. From a operations perspective, this comes into what are we choosing to fix? What are we choosing not to fix? What are we, we're not tearing down the building and starting new. So there's, just like at Euclid, there's some decisions that have to be made. There are some things that, with the bids being fully completed, that I think we've been on a pretty solid path to doing a very similar remodel to Indian Grove here. I have been focusing on some of the things and just trying to break out some of the things that are either not occurring, because I think it is really important. I walked around Euclid, and I don't know if you ever paint your walls at the house and then all of a sudden your floors look like junk, okay? Or whatever you do, right? When you upgrade something or make something look better, the things that you didn't maybe address that didn't look so bad, now that they start to stand out. So even at Euclid, I noticed there's some doors, there's some windows that are fogged up, there's stuff going on there at Euclid, so don't think we're done with Euclid. But Indian Grove, this is basically our recommendations to move forward. We had some alternates quoted. There's some things that as a group we feel that we should move on, such as the asphalt paving, the cafeteria flooring, and then there were some things that we chose to forego, which some panel partitions and things like that. But any questions on that?
You referenced some things that were coming in below. What were those items?
Okay, operations, not finance, but I will say that, Ryan, if you want to touch on those, please.
Absolutely. So the estimated 95% budget that was presented in May of this year, the estimated total bid costs were supposed to be $12.1 million plus an additional roughly $150,000 for a switchgear. And the overall bids came in at just over $10.5 million, and the switchgear was part of that bid. So roughly $1.6 million in the overall bids compared to what was presented in May. That number, that 10.5, also includes the lockers and flooring, which were additional costs that were alternates at Euclid. And since they were approved at Euclid, we decided in order for equity's sake to put those into the base bid at Indian Grove. So again, from what we expected to be about 12.25 million in bids for just the infrastructure project, it came in at 10.5. So that's the lower bid number
And
there.
also add to that, but not get into the weeds on finance, but that 10.5 that we are moving forward here does also include the cushion or the,
allowance.
The allowance, yes, thank you.
That is also included, correct.
which is what percentage again?
Usually the allowance is anywhere between 5 and 10%.
Okay.
So
I won't pin you down to a number. Again, operations, not finance. But, so that's a firm, we're at a firm number finally.
not,
We're also at a firm to-do list.
Are you okay with that answer?
Yeah, so so the next steps from this, if everybody is in agreement with the items that we are, as an operations committee, are moving forward, the next, and the stuff that we're setting aside. And again, we're not, at this point, this is basically going to, does this get to a point now where we sign them after this is approved? Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Right,
that's
yeah.
where we're at in the process.
I just have a couple of questions. I noticed, thank you for sending over the drawing, the latest drawing. So it looked to me like the art room is moving to where the music room is currently. And then the music room, is that going where the art room is, or it wasn't labeled on the map? Okay. And then as far as restrooms, are all of them being remodeled, or is just 2 of them? Are the ones by the gym also being redone?
no, the ones by the gym will be very similar to the ones in the C Wing and Euclid. Those were updated in the 1991 edition and don't need the same restoration that the
Okay.
other 2 gang bathrooms
Got
need.
it. Thank you.
I'm impressed that you knew the answer to that, Ryan.
Okay, let me entertain a motion and a second to accept the Operations Committee recommendation to approve the following bids. Priority number 1, alternate. Alternate number 3, asphalt playground repaving. Priority 2, alternate. Alternate 5, Euclid cafeteria flooring. And reject alternates 1, 2, 4, and 6.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Ronstadt, second by Pfister. Last chance, comments or questions? Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Camardo?
No.
Pfister?
Yes.
Bianchini?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Ronstadt?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is Union Grove Mechanical bids. This is an action item as well. Let me entertain a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of the Operations Committee of the following: the HVAC equipment and building automation systems from Train at a cost not to exceed $2,323,405.
Motion.
Motion by Ronstadt,
Second.
second by Bianchini. Comments or questions?
So are we eligible for that same grant that we had at Euclid for all of our, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the solar panels and the battery. This is completely separate.
Yeah.
I apologize. I got a little bit excited there ahead of myself.
Nope, this is real money to be spent, through a consortium or something, and it's just to make sure the equipment's all there before we start. I get excited about free money too, Janine,
Sorry,
I
that's
really do.
exactly what happened.
but this is not free money.
Any other comments or questions? Okay,
Sorry, and these are the exact, I know, I'm sorry, Mr. Grimpy. But these are the exact same, just reading off of the document that was there. These are almost the exact same setup. They're just for 2024 version. Okay. And they're all on background. Perfect.
Correct.
Thank you.
you are welcome. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Happily. Pfister,
Yes.
Camardo,
No.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. I'm sorry, guys. Motion carries.
Okay, next up is the hiring of the construction manager at Indian Grove. This is also an action item. Let me entertain a motion and a second to approve the construction management fee of 4% and liability insurance of 0.69% of construction costs, fixed general conditions fee of $209,500 for a total of $714,508. In addition, Nicholas is estimating approximately $350,000 for reimbursable costs.
Motion.
Moved by Ronstadt,
Second.
second by Bianchini. Any comments or questions? You sure?
Do you,
Yes.
I think maybe the question probably Donna would ask. Maybe you would ask. So this is the same project manager that did Euclid. Are they confident? I know the timeline will be somewhat different because we get out a little bit later. I don't know when we're planning on starting back. Are they confident in doing Indian Grove in the same timeline?
So it is the same, it's Nicholas and Associates, you know, that we hope it's the same people. But, you know, that can obviously change.
I just hope it's not the same manager that did Indian Grove this summer.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know about that. I'd defer that to the administration.
It will not be the same project manager as Indian Grove.
Okay.
We're hoping to get the same one as Euclid to have the experience that they had this summer.
He did a great job, yeah. Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Yes. Ronstadt,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Camardo,
No.
Pfister,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
and Grimpy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is the President's Report. Upcoming events. Tomorrow is the Prairie Trails School Curriculum Night at 6 p.m. On the 12th is the Euclid Ice Cream Social at 6 p.m. September 18th, 19th, and 20th is Indian Grove's Recess with Relatives. The 19th of September is the Prairie Trails PTC Parent Night Out. On the 27th is the middle school's Rec Night at 6:30. On September 27th, Euclid Donuts with Grown-Ups at 7:45. And our next meeting will be on October 8th at Indian Grove. So please mark your calendars for that. We are still looking for some board members who have not signed up for anything on our community engagement spreadsheet. That is always a live document that Dr. Megley sends out on her updates. So if you could take a peek at that this Friday. Those of you who have not signed up for any events, please do so. And I think that is everything. Next up is the superintendent's report. Dr. Megley, you have the floor.
Okay, a couple things I would like to highlight in my report this month is just an update on opening week. I know I did a preview last month. That was before we opened. I want to give a solar panel update on the grant that Janine was just referring to, and then talk a little bit, hope to obtain some guidance on the future of River Trails Middle School. So, a couple of things. Opening week, opening day, first few days, lots to celebrate. I feel like we had a super smooth opening, lots of energy from the staff, and a lot of excitement. So, as Bob referenced earlier, even just like the opening of Euclid was very exciting to see from the students walking in, the staff. I can't imagine. I'm sure they were stressed unboxing and preparing for students, but they were all very happy doing so. We've had 3 of the 4 open houses. Attendance looked good from the parent. perspective and tried a different format at Indian Grove this year with having more of an open house before school started, which really was kind of like a drop in, drop off your supplies, say hi to the teacher, no formal like presentation from the teacher. So that was just nice. I know that we often have conversations about conferences and open house and what format meets the needs of our community. So we'll be gathering some information and feedback on that and just see how it goes. I told Mr. Timmons, don't plan on that next year. Hiring, I feel like we started the year in a great place. Mr. Timmons even said like it's the first time since he's worked here that he's been fully staffed, which really is the lunch supervisor position that is really difficult to fill for those 2 or 3 hours during the school day. So we've had a variety of leaves starting right at the beginning of the year. And so I'm really happy about where we were at with hiring. And then finally, I mean, logistics during the weeks leading up to the start of school is a lot. We have new teachers that we're onboarding. We have new support staff. We have our staff that we are welcoming back. We have tech sessions. We have food organization. What are we going to feed them? Breakfast, lunch. I mean, there's so many logistics. And we also have our building administration, the principals who are meeting with staff. And so there's so many important messages from myself through cabinet that we are threading through those days. So we have a lot going on. And I just want to say, like this year, I could really feel the unity of our administrative team during these weeks. I was working on things that I don't normally dig into, like construction and mandated trainings, and I hosted a PD session with staff. And so I felt a little bit more disconnected from knowing the level of detail, like feeling like I had a really good grip on everything that was going on. And at one point, I remember walking through the middle school, I think it was day 2 of having our staff back, and all the assistants are in a classroom and they're working on their mandated trainings. And it really just hit me that, wow, I processed everything that had just happened in the course of the 2-3 weeks, and just so thankful to have the team that I'm working with. I mean, you all saw them present in June and you see the work that they're doing, but to be able to have a team that I can trust, that we've been working on building communication systems. It was just great to be able to trust that each person was doing what they needed to do to get ready for the year. And it was all executed with a high level of professionalism. And it was great. Like at one point I really was like, wow, I can't believe we just did all that in a few weeks. One of the big pieces is that we added, I don't know if you all remember, but we added an in-service day to replace a student attendance day. And so we were able to infuse the Innovation Symposium. I talked a bit about this. I previewed it. But typically, we required that for the first and second year staff. And so this year, now everyone was able to take part of such a key piece of our instruction. I mean, technology is infused in everything that we do. And the positive feedback included opportunity for choice of the staff members. We had great in-house presenters. We were able to give our own staff an opportunity to lead and teach their own peers. And it's been difficult for us to get attendance during the summer on some of these sessions that are really key to our staff's growth, and it's engaging for the kids. So I think that was something that was really well received and a very good use of the time, the extra day. We also had time to work on some of these mandated trainings, but more importantly, time for the special services team to collaborate on their caseload and accommodations before the kids came into school. We normally allocate time to that, but that is after the school year has begun. And it's unfortunately, the special education staff, the case managers have to run around and connect and organize these teams. So it's not the most fluid process. It happens, but having it happen before school starting and having all staff available was a really big benefit to having that extra time. So, the only bump in the road, I mean, I say this tongue in cheek, but I've been griping about it, was the transportation. We had quite a few new drivers, 3 or 4 new drivers. So, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There were some missed stops. There was some late arrivals. We had broken down bus. There were some other issues. I sent 2 emails that weren't very nice. I rode 2 buses. I checked in with all the new bus drivers several times, like asking them what we can do to help them. I think you guys know I'm a problem solver. Like, I will complain about an issue, but I'm also trying to make things better for the next time around. So, I'm trying to work with the bus company, like specifically, this is what we need and what do we need to do to make things better. Their response, they responded to my concerns. They have been communicating better. And again, I just like to see, here's my concern, please respond accordingly. And they have. So I feel like by the end of the first week, we were on a better track, but it was a little bit, too much for me. So, I got more involved than I probably would have with transportation, but I wanted it to be cleaned up sooner rather than later. Any questions about the start of school before I move on to solar panels? Yeah.
How's transportation doing now?
Like I said, they cleaned up by the end of the first week, and things are, still overall much better. Your typical kind of transportation things, like, a parent's not happy with the driver, or working through bus stops, things like that. But those are things that, again, that kind of normally happen throughout the course of the year.
You said for Mr. Timmons not to expect something next year, not to expect this open house?
Well, yes, just because of construction, he won't have the.
Oh, because of construction.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know. It was. I thought it was great, but Euclid could do something like that, but yeah, I just don't see him having the.
Oh, no.
Right?
Totally makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Get it.
All right. Okay, so solar panels. Well, this has been an adventure. So I've tried to send little snippets of updates throughout the course of the summer. Funds were supposed to be released by the end of June. We were then told that the funds were going to be released by the end of August. And then I've now been told that the funds are supposed to be released by the end of September. So July, August. So we're way behind the timeline that we initially thought we would be. We thought we would be installing solar panels in the fall or winter. I would say that is completely off of the table now with the bumping of this timeline. The funds are reimbursed, so we pay for them and get reimbursed, which is typical probably with grants, but it's unclear right now, and we are seeking clarification if we can pay for things outside of these budget periods that I'm going to talk about, or put a deposit down and still get reimbursed. So the problem now is that these budget periods are new. Like, we just learned about these in August, September, early September. So they have these 2 budget periods. There are certain items that you can buy and purchase in period 1, and then there's certain items that you can buy and purchase in period 2. The whole consortium has to get their plans approved and their finances approved before we can move on to budget period 2. We just learned that budget period 1 is ideally, help me out, 6
months.
but
At
could
least-
be up to a year.
Yeah.
They're
Typically-
hoping they can wrap that up by February. So I wrote this last week, and my most recent call had said March or April. So that's even, budget period 2 has changed just in the last week. So I guess I'm just kind of letting you know that where we started on this journey, things have continued to evolve and change. Some of the implications, meaning we have bids on solar panels. I don't know how long those bids will continue to be good for, because now we're getting into maybe 6 months down the road. And so literally today, Ryan and I kind of regrouped on what the initial plan for the solar panel, the grant money was for, and does it make sense to maybe rethink the plan for that? I think it's worth the exercise to sit down and just look at it, because this timeline puts us, a year and a half, year beyond what we thought we were going to be doing. So that's kind of where it is right now. Any questions? I mean, again, I'll just keep updating you as I get little bits and pieces in the Friday updates. But it's a lot to understand, and it keeps changing. Anything, Dan, Ryan? No? Okay.
So who is this really falling on? Like, who is, like, is it the funding that's the problem, the way that it's getting dispersed from the government entity, or is this an issue with the consortium, or is this an issue, like, I know it doesn't fall probably just on one group, but like, who's not agreeing?
I think it's the government. And so they have a process that is like, everything needs to be reviewed by the grant management specialist, and it goes to the contracting officer. And so there's a layer to their process, but we've been given the September fund release because that's when their like fiscal year wraps up. And so they want to have this set, but I don't know if I believe them, but so I think it's just the Department of Energy keeps moving it down.
The timeline? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Finally, I just, since we're in the midst of all the other renovations, I do want to get some feedback on where you guys' head is at with the future of the middle school. So, why am I asking this now? Well, partly because after I map it out, I'm 5 or 6 years down the road of a pretty clear plan taking that long. And so here's what I see as the options, and is one, we could pause any big renovation plans for the middle school and pivot to create a long-term plan for maintenance and upkeep. Like, what does that plan look like? What are the costs? And invest our time and energy there. We could refresh the middle school in sections over time. Like, let's do the floors. Let's continue. We've upgraded the middle school here. We have a furniture plan. We have some classrooms with new furniture. We've done some painting over the summer. So we're doing some aesthetic work. It doesn't really address like the boiler, some of the guts of the building. But again, that could be the direction, is to refresh the building in sections over time rather than a full remodel. Or we could continue to move forward with drawings, full renovation drawings, to determine what is the scope of the middle school, what would those cost levels look like, what would the various scopes look like. And as Louis mentioned, we've maxed out our borrowing capacity, so any major renovation would need to we would need to look towards a referendum. So other considerations, large-scale renovation on this building would be multi-phase, so easily 2 years, and then, depending on what that scope looks like, could be longer. We have paid for initial drawings of the middle school, the sketch design, which isn't much, but you all approved to pay for those, I think September of 22, for about $250,000. I believe, and I use the word should, have borrowing capacity in 2032. That's what we're on track, and 2032 is a long time from now. So feedback from you guys, like, what option would you like to see us kind of continue to invest in, to plan for? Is there a desire of the board to do an RFP for any of the major players, construction firm, architect? Those are all things that will take time, that will influence a 5-year, 6-year plan. So again, I previewed this in the operations committee, and
my lens is that I've seen us kind of zigzag a little bit with Euclid. I mean, it took a long time to get to where we ended with the renovation. And so I don't want to zigzag. I would like to kind of have a plan and then invest in that plan and move straight. So, who would like to go first?
I will happily go first. I think that the scope of the projects we've done at our other 3 buildings have set the bar pretty high, happily. And I think that we have now set a standard for our families and our students that when they come to the middle school, I don't know that that same standard is going to be met in the future. I think that this would be, if any time we were to pass a referendum, and I know none of us want to do a referendum, nobody likes the word referendum, but I think if we have set ourselves up that if we were ever going to pass a referendum, this would probably be that time, because we've got families who go through Prairie Trails, and then we'll go through Euclid, and then go through Indian Grove, which will be renovated, and then come to here. And while this school still looks good when you compare it to our other schools, it doesn't meet that same standard. So I think we will have families on board with that idea because of the schools that their students have attended thus far. And it's time to complete the project. That's my opinion. Anybody else?
I'll go. I would say I'm open-minded, but I think that I had a middle school open house night. People come to the board. Kevin had a lot of conversations with those parents, and they were very excited. Here's the 3 most common things I heard. Wow, I can't believe you got it done in time. Everyone's driving by to Joel, like, oh my gosh, when is it going to get done? Number 2, when are you going to do trails? What are you going to do here? Because it was Euclid and then the Indian Grove and Prairie Trails pictures. So I think that's the question. You're asking the right question. It's the question that's on other stakeholders. I'm sure it's on this question that's on staff, teachers' minds. It's a question that's on community members' minds, and like it's up to us kind of to decide what that is. We have a very big project with Indian Grove in the next year, but I think at the same time, there's an opportunity to really like not just get our opinion, but get a temperature check from all the shareholders. Like, if you want to engage parents, if you want to engage the community, like, we have to keep inviting them look at Euclid, look at Prairie Trail. What do you want to happen? And to really assess the needs. In my mind, it's like mostly mechanical, and we've done such a good job with Euclid and Grove of like recreating those buildings into basically new buildings, but repurposing what we have. So I think there's room to do that. But I think you have to keep the momentum going to have those conversations. I think my math is right. So if we were to do it in 2028, get approval, we could finish by 2030, right? 2 years. That would mean that the kindergartners and second graders would be at the middle school then. So we have families, like you said, that are going to start. There's a group that if you did the temperature check and got those parents involved and they were interested to help pass a referendum, I think that's where past referendums have failed, is that we didn't have enough cheerleaders and help within the community. So my suggestion is that I think we should always keep investing in our buildings when we can. What scares me is something like, oh, we didn't plan to replace our boiler and something happens and we have to do it anyway. So I would rather have a plan for that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll take this from a operations committee standpoint. I do think, and I kind of alluded to it, that at Euclid there are still some needs. Obviously Prairie Trails is brand new. at this point, it's brand new. You know, Indian Grove is going to have some of the same challenges. We also have, we do have a commitment from, or we had a commitment from the maintenance department that the major systems could be maintained through 2032. So we shouldn't get hit with a surprise $2 million, let's replace the boiler. There at least there was confidence that we could maintain those large systems. I agree that I'm very hopeful that as students and parents see Prairie Trails, Euclid, Indian Grove, that they start asking, when are we doing trails? But I kind of want to feel that come from them, not us anticipating it, if that makes sense. You know, us thinking that, hey, in 2 years we could, or 3 years, we could be in a position where they're beating our doors down asking for, you know, trails to be remodeled. Maybe, maybe not. But I'd kind of like that pressure to come from the community a little bit more this time, because I think that with our history of referendums, it's been, you know, I mean, I'd love to see us be able to do it. And then presented with these options here, you know, pause major renovation plans. I think that's a proper term, you know, pause. Like, I'm not suggesting that we don't do a referendum, but I do think that from an operations committee standpoint, I would like to get a better handle on what are some of the immediate unbudgeted needs in Euclid and Indian Grove, and even in River Trails, that just some nuts and bolts kind of stuff that needs to be cleaned up, that is within the scope of our operational budget number 30? 20, dang it. Okay, our budget number 20, right? Like, what can we do there? And there are, I think, some aesthetic things to do. I think there's also some options that could present ourselves to do some work towards a larger plan and chip away at it. That's the operations committee piece. From a finance perspective, I know we're at capacity right now, but I also know that we've put these numbers out here, and these are our goal, and then we've come in under budget. And we've had, you know, we've consistently come in under budget on some of those things, which sounds great, but we also have a new business manager here who's going to be, you know, I hope in this next year, you know, to some degree, I think kind of getting, you know, when you take over for a long-term person in an executive role, there's kind of some getting back to basics kind of stuff that you know, maybe something that, you know, Ryan's predecessor set up 10 years ago, that 10 years ago was great, that could probably use a refresh. And I personally, just from the finance standpoint, would love to just have a year of a little bit more of a normalized kind of, let's get back to nuts and bolts basics, and also get some normalcy with some of the budgetary questions, and really have both an understanding of some of those maintenance things that need to be picked up, but also from a finance piece, where are we really at? Because I'm still a little kind of, and, you know, I mean, now we have our final numbers for Indian Grove, so now I'd love to see like a rework of just how much money will we have? Like, do we have no money to spend in the next couple of years between now and 2032, or do we project some money to spend? Like, I don't know the answer to that question right now, but I know we don't have the full amount for what we could do for this school. And taking it even a step further, if we delayed this to a point where we're keeping this facility in, you know, working, okay, and we get to closer to 2032, we could start really dreaming big. We could have a lot of demand coming from the community. We could have some more borrowing capacity, and we could also have the opportunity to do a referendum, and we could do something amazing here, not just something to maintain it. So that's my other thought too, is that just, I really want that demand to come. You know, I don't see an audience here saying trails, trails, trails. But maybe maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe we're going to have parents going like, why is Trails a dump? It's not. Okay? But why doesn't it look like Euclid? Why doesn't it look like Indian Grove? And them coming to us and saying, hey, let's do this as a community, not just us anticipating it. So that's where I'm. I'm somewhere between 1 and 2. Let's chill for a year. Let's focus on some of the nuts and bolts, and then, let's see what we can do. Let's also let the finances settle a little bit, and let's regroup and hit this question hard again next year.
Anybody else?
Well, I don't want to repeat everything. So I kind of fall between 1 and 2 as well, only because, and Robert, we don't hear this often, but I totally agree with Robert. Like, I'm just trying to figure out like where the finance piece is, and because I am removed a little bit from the operations and finance committee, because that's getting the reports, and not necessarily into the deep nitty gritty of every single conversation that happens at those. I can see both sides of it. From parents whose kids are exiting. And I know we always have this problem, and we always will, because there will always be new students coming in and other students leaving, and the residents, they all take it very personally when we start to talk about referendums, even though it's for the betterment of the school. Like, if you were to ask me, like, my kids will be gone before this really happens, or like Raina might be in middle school, and I would vote for it in a heartbeat. But that's because that's how I feel about schools and public education. But not everybody feels that way. So I would really like to get some more information, not just from parents and from the community, but from the staff, and to see kind of really, I would just like more information and more data. But I'm also very open-minded, just from my own standpoint. I would like to know, like, what are some of the big hitters here? Like, I love this school. I like the way that everything is laid out. I love that we have a STEAM lab. I like a lot of the pieces. Like, we have a really great music area. Like, we have all of those encore and elective pieces that not every school has the benefit of having and has the privilege of having. So I would want to know, like, where are the needs, and kind of what going forward are people expecting? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, what, I don't want to do things just to keep up with the Joneses. I want to have a great community and a great school. And I kind of want to know what those things are. Yeah. Which is always hard to get that info, but, but the other part of it is like, we weren't looking at, when we tried referendum components, like, I think that was the hard part, it's the hard part of getting that investment from families that, have moved on to Maine, or have moved on to, Hersey, or don't have kids in the school district yet, or are empty nesters. So I feel like it's a lot different when we start to talk about referendums and getting information, which, again, I know is practically impossible, but I would want to know more about, I don't know, what the community is thinking too.
And just to point out, finance, we haven't met since May, right? So there will be those coming up where because we will have to sell bonds again, but that amount might be adjusted based on how the numbers came in. So we'd have those numbers like November, soon, right?
Anybody else?
I would like more. I agree with Janine. I'd like more data, whatever we have data that we're not necessarily spending money on, but how do we get more input and a list of what we think actually would need change.
What the scope of the project
Yeah.
would be at the middle school and what that cost would be.
You might not know the cost. We have some drawings, but we have gotten bids on 2 schools recently, so we could have some sort of estimates there.
Kim?
I'm falling between the 1 and 2 as well, but just with a little bit of more hesitation in proceeding with. I feel at some level, when we went from Euclid into IG, the ball was rolling and we just went with it. And I would be very hesitant to continue that ball rolling so quickly as we're moving towards trails, because and I was very new in that situation, so maybe that was just my interpretation of it, but it almost seemed as if we went from one to the next, and sometimes in that process there wasn't the chance to take a step back and say, wait a minute, where are we at now? What does that look like? And then make those projections. It was a decision after a decision after a decision, and not really some time to take a step back. So I'm falling between 1 and 2 in that. However, just really leaning more on the conservative side as far as time is concerned.
Louis, you're up.
Okay, so try to answer these directly. Which option would you like to see us invest in? So either 1, 2, or 3, assuming what you're saying. I would say 0. Basically, the plan as it was presented was max everything out, and then when we have money again, we can either do that in 2032, when the bonds come due, or we go to referendum. And so that was what was presented to us, and that 6 out of 7 voted to go forward with. So we barely made a dent into that. And so I think if we're starting the idea of creating long-term plans with costs and renovation ideas, we are so far away at this point from the actuality of those, whether or not it's a referendum or with our own internal finances through bonds, and how those costs and those plans will change just by looking at the history of what has changed and transpired over the past 2 years with these 2 elementary schools. Anything we come up with now is just going to be so obsolete in 6 years at that point. So I would rather wait to start the initial phases of planning and figuring out what we want to do, the scope of the project, and what available funds look like. So I guess by de facto, desire to do an RFP, no desire.
Keep all of our.
So you're really for number 1.
Pause. Oh, okay, so I guess, and create long-term plans with costs. Create long-term plans with costs. I would say create the long-term plans, like start creating those in 2 years from now. Not, I read this as, we're going to pause renovation plans and we'll start working on that.
Well, that's for maintenance and upkeep, like, you still, if you're not gonna.
We should have the maintenance and upkeep already in the budget now
True.
for the next 5 years. We absolutely need to know in the O&M fund for the next 5 years what items need to be replaced, maintained, and upkept. That was a given. So if we don't know that now, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And one of the question marks that I have forever been foggy on.
I know. But it very much ties to like finance. Like I just don't have a good handle on, like, again, do we have any money to play with or no money to play with? I don't know. Really don't know.
We'll get those numbers.
Yep. And then I think we can tie together like what we could do around maintenance and upkeep outside of just straight maintenance. But there might be some, there's opportunities where it's like, you spend, $50,000 to maintain something for 3 years or $100,000 to replace it. And in a 3-year scope, that makes sense, right? And if the ROI is tight enough, it makes sense. And to me, that's the direction with 1 is look for those maintenance upkeep items where there's an ROI within a window here between now and 2032. To me,
Yeah.
that's what that says.
Well, and I think like the question a little bit is knowing the direction so that if we are not talking anything till 2032, the maintenance plan that you saw 2, 3, 4 years ago, that's going to be a longer timeline. So what are the costs of, boilers, or what is, revisiting what that plan is and how to fully maximize it. I mean, we do have parts from Indian Grove and from Euclid, we will, but I don't think we've literally talked 2030 and beyond. The middle school has been on the plan, as far as I've seen in the last 5 years, as it's next.
It's next, but it wasn't next before 2030 in any of the plans.
Yeah, I'll be real clear. That meeting that we had where we, to me, sent the team back to say, can you maintain the middle school till 2032? That answer was a yes.
Yes.
Like, I'm not, like you just
Right.
said, before
Well,
2030?
no, we're talking beyond 2032.
Well, no, not really.
Don't have, so 2032 is when our debt, and if we don't refinance, there's a lot of ifs, right? So like, if you're stuck in like, don't bring this back to us until 30 to 32, we're too late. Like,
I didn't say don't
we're
bring
too
it
late.
back to us
And
in
so
2032.
you're saying 32 is when there's debt available for us to borrow, but then the school would not be renovated fully until 2034 or 2035.
Necessarily.
And it's a multi-year project.
Well, she's saying if we went after him at 2028, it would be done in 2030. So
No, if we wanted to do something in 2032, that we could do some steps. When we knew that
That's
the
true.
dollars were
Okay.
opening up, we could spend money on architectural fees, we could go through the bid process. We have funds to do that, so that when that debt service capability opened up, we could start spending right away. Possibly.
I just think to say like, we're not talking about this until then, seemed like it was kind of going that way. It's like, don't bring it, we don't want to talk about it. I want to be open to, if you learn about funding, if you learn about a grant, if you learn, like, stay open-minded. I'm not saying we're like, let's go to referendum tomorrow, but we need to take advantage of what we have. So we have momentum at looking at our schools. We have a new school to engage our community. Invite Indian Grove parents there soon. Like, get them walking around. Invite before you get there so they can see, and so that you can, if we talk about community, I'm not saying yes or no to referendum. Maybe they'll say no, but at least we've had that conversation and like invited them in to tell us what they think the needs are for them.
Well, and even so, like, regardless of whether we go for it or not, if we were even to pursue a referendum, we have to know 2 years in advance because we have to get it onto the ballot. So it's like, there's a lot of planning that goes into that too. So, I mean, we have to know well in advance for that.
Yeah, that's why I said that, my thought is get back to basics for a year here. And then next year we can, with more data points and all this stuff flushed out, we can then make another call. I'm not saying wipe it off the plate for I'm just saying 1 year here, let's get back to basics, reassess next year where we're at, keep an open mind, understand the finances better, and hopefully get some more demand and communication from the parents and the taxpayers as a whole. Because remember, the people that foot this bill aren't just the parents of the kids, it's the whole community. So one way or another, yeah.
So just to get back to the question that was asked, Jody's asking us to come to a consensus
Well,
about
I
next
think
steps, or?
just knowing where each of you are is helpful. So I think, I feel good, so thank you. I don't think we'll ever get to a consensus right now, but honestly, like, I had no idea where each of you sat on this, so this is helpful, so thank you.
So is that giving us a, some kind of direction moving forward, at least to get some of these pieces that I'm hearing people would like additional information on? So Becky, as you said, we're coming up to some of these meetings that will gain some clarity. Is that what I'm hearing? That we're
Yeah, I
gonna-
think the finance position, that data will be soon, to hopefully belay people's anxiety about a little bit. Like, we'll know that. I think, I don't know, Jody will probably gather some.
Well, the finance committee could also develop their want list as far as what you would recommend to the board and what you want Jody and Ryan to work on.
Well, and we could also, once you get the information from the finance committee, because again, we had like so much of a projection of funds and we've actually underspent that, which is great. So you might actually come back and say, we thought we were going to have a $5 million cushion. Now we have a $10 million cushion. And we could all, as a group, be like, well, okay, now we need more data before we can give direction. And we could even decide based on, what happens in the next 6 months that, hey, all of a sudden there's people showing up saying, we love Euclid, make the other. Who knows? We could decide to push this timeline up. But for the immediate now, it's more data.
I mean, the problem is the projection of funds, I agree with you, but the projection of expenses are going to get out of whack because if we get any quotes, which I know we wouldn't, but they're going to change. And by the time we would want to act on those quotes, they're probably not going to be accurate anymore. That's a moving goalpost that will just keep moving.
But I don't understand. What do you mean in terms of maintenance?
No, I mean, it's what we want to spend the money on, how we want to, whatever we want to do at this school, we obviously have to, get a timeline or get a checklist or want list of what we have to do. And then, but to cost that out, to find out what our expenses are going to go towards is going to change until we decide to finally, put it in write it in pen and make it permanent. Anybody else?
Just one more question. So the drawings that were done, was the purpose of that for a maintenance plan, or I don't remember why those were done?
I don't know. I would have to look back at your guys' notes because that was probably a long time ago.
That was at least 5 years ago when we did those drawings.
Yeah. I thought it was September.
It was life safety.
Yeah, but we did a bigger remodel with the one referendum that we thought about going out to. We did some initial drawings.
Okay. They were drawings that was done in March 2022. I don't know what those are.
Probably.
I think you may have, paid for them.
Ryan said they were paid for in the fall of 2022. The drawings were done March 15th, 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm guessing y'all talked about, you approved that at some point for some reason, but I'd have to look back.
Any other comments before we move on? Do you have a good enough consensus? Do you have additional questions yourself for the board?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Next up is policy 2, subset 140, communications to the board. We did not receive any emails from the public, so we can move on to FOIA requests. We did have one. Thank you, Patty, for taking care of that. Future topics, pending items. We do have our board self-evaluation. We're looking at doing it on Tuesday, October 15th from 5 to 8 p.m. Is that okay with everybody's schedule? So we can schedule that tomorrow.
I'm sorry, one more time.
October 15th from 5 to 8 p.m. It's Tuesday night.
I'm good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, if you could please let Dr. Megali know, that'd be great. I'm a yes, by the way. Everybody else is a yes? Obviously, we don't know Donna. Next up is the III Conference downtown from November 21st to the 24th. The schedule has since been posted. If you go to IASB's website, you can access it if you want to start looking at the sessions. Again, the general session on set, has it been confirmed that the Steel Drum Band will be playing? I know they tentatively agreed, but they were going to look into logistics.
No, they're not going to be playing.
They're not?
No.
All right, that's a bummer. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about III before we move on? Okay, does anybody have any items for future consideration? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion in a second to adjourn the meeting at 8:43 p.m. Moved by Grimpy, second by Camardo. Could you please call roll?
Friedland, yes. Ronstadt.
Yes.
Camardo.
Yes.
Pfister.
Yes.
Grimpy.
Yes.
Bianchini.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 8:43 PM. Board members, we need you to stick around so you can sign the budget.
Also, I'm so sorry. Like, I literally went into my
all
thing.
seven.
Can we hash out our one-on-one time, right here, right now? Pick a date.
Got it.
Instead
I
of
got
emailing
it.
back and forth,